I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't even gonna make this video at one point due to Thanos seemingly beating the Hulk back in his most recent run. However, thanks to the most recent Hulk annual, the last fight between the two did showcase that Hulk can take much more of a beating than that from the Mad Titan. Now with that out of the way, I do just want to say that this video will be in a similar vein as my Thor vs Hulk video, in that I'll be looking at the shared history of the characters as well as their abilities to come to a conclusion as to who would win in an all-out fight. This video also kind of exists because almost any time I see the comic history between Hulk and Thanos discussed on sites like Twitter and YouTube, it's made out to seem like the events always end up like their fight during Infinity War in the MCU. This has never happened, even during the few instances where both combatants are functioning at 100% without being granted any temporary amp. So to break into the timeline of events surrounding the history of Thanos and Hulk, we'll start with the first thing connecting the two, which is when Thanos mentions him during the events of Thanos Quest Issue 1. In this comic, Thanos meets the Champion, an Elder of the Universe, who was wielding an Infinity Stone, and because that's what Thanos was searching for at the time, the two end up scrapping. Despite the Elder possessing what is probably the most known amount of fighting styles in the Marvel Universe, Thanos does know that he's telegraphing his strikes far too much, which anyone who knows anything about martial arts would say that this is a pretty stupid thing to do. However, the Elder was likely doing this because of how angry he was getting towards Thanos, which then leads Thanos to make the comparison to the Hulk, and ends it by saying he'd prefer to not battle the latter. What really sets the Hulk apart from the Champion is that the former is an extremely unpredictable fighter, with such a statement being made in a guide, which is then backed up by someone like Daredevil, stating that Hulk is the most unpredictable creature on the planet. Daredevil is someone who boasts the ability to predict and control the flow of combat even when faced with other master combatants like Bullseye and Crossbones, as seen in issue 20 of his 2019 run. So the fact that he deems Hulk as unpredictable is a pretty crazy statement. Another piece of evidence to enhance this point is that Hulk was once deemed far too unorthodox to take head on without a plan by a machine that was seen as the perfect weapon and counter to the Green Goliath. So based on all the prime mentioned points, it would make sense as to why the Hulk is far more of a threat to Thanos than the Champion of the Universe, even if the Elder was using an Infinity Stone. Thanos' first encounter with the Hulk would eventually happen during the Infinity Gauntlet event, where we see the heroes attempt to jump Thanos, but are all taken care of without much difficulty. The times we actually see Hulk attempt to take on Thanos, he's shown to get backhanded by the Titan alongside Drax. Then, when he pulls up again, he's seemingly able to gain the upper hand with a barrage of punches, but then we learn that Thanos was just playing around with him, and then he proceeds to shrink Hulk and attempt to crush him. And this was never going to go well for Hulk, as during this event, his core personality was Professor Hulk, who, while he's stronger than classic Savage Hulk at a baseline, lacks the ability to really get madder and thus stronger. Though this wouldn't have mattered at all anyway, as Thanos had the fucking Infinity Gauntlet, which allowed him to control all aspects of matter and beyond. The next run-in that the two Titans have is during X-Men Annual 1998, whereby Hulk meets Thanos, who piqued Hulk's interest by pretending to be what seemed like the voice of Betty Ross. However, it's revealed that Thanos was merely projecting himself from an alternate dimension, which he had harnessed the power of. However, that same power was also preventing him from leaving and returning to his native universe. During Thanos' attempt to persuade Hulk to help him, Nate Gray pulls up and, thinking that Hulk is going to help Thanos, tries to throw down with Hulk. After setting aside their differences, Hulk and Nate showcase a dope team up whereby Nate uses his psionic powers to grant Hulk the powers of and Hulk is able to beat Thanos. Now, while this version of Thanos was a clone, or a Thanosi, as the true Mad Titan calls them, and a pretty shitty one at that, as the reason why he ended up in that alternate dimension was because he basically got BFR'd there by Marvel's equivalent of Tarzan. However, the fact that this clone amassed so much power from the space that he claims that he had essentially become it himself, and then goes on to mess up Hulk with an energy blast, should prove that he had well eclipsed his base power. However, this fight specifically wasn't really a representation of who would win in a fair fight between the two, as Hulk had help from Nate Gray and Thanos was pretty drastically amped. Now moving on to the Avengers Assemble run for Brian Michael Bendis, where Thanos shows up and tries to acquire the Cosmic Cube. When the Avengers confront him about this motive, he proceeds to use mind manipulation to make Hulk grab Thor's arm and then pummel the God of Thunder with Mjolnir. Now, considering that most of the time when Hulk is exposed to mind hacks, he's practically as calm as can be, with it also being stated in a guide that as Hulk gets angrier, his ability to resist mind manipulation also scales up. However, this really isn't to cope with Hulk. Thanos merely took advantage of the situation with his own abilities. During the later issues of this arc, and after finally obtaining the Cosmic Cube and then losing it pretty much immediately right after, Thanos is then jumped by the Avengers and the Guardians of the Galaxy, with Groot leading the assault. While it does seem that Hulk is able to draw blood from Thanos, I'd say this is really up for interpretation, as you could just as easily say it was one of the other heroes that caused the damage. Nonetheless, it shouldn't really matter, as Hulk scales to, if not above, these same characters. The outing in which Hulk and Thanos encountered each other next was during pages of issue 6 of the Infinity event, where the Avengers returned to Earth which was being held hostage by Thanos and his Black Order so that he could kill his last full-blooded son, Thane. Hulk was the first one to pull up to the group, but was quickly knocked back by a full-on hit from Thanos. However, the next page reveals that this punch did little to nothing, as Hulk is seen smiling with no damage. Unfortunately for Hulk, he was then jumped by the combined might of Proxima Midnight and Corvus Glaive, with the former using her spear to restrain Hulk via infinite gravity onto his body, with Corvus Glaive then mocking the Green Behemoth and beginning to cut his throat with his spear. Proxima then uses her spear to drain the gamma radiation from Hulk, thus reverting him back into Bruce Banner and putting an end to Hulk's time on the battlefield. After this, Jim Starlin treated us to the fight to end all fights, the ultimate heavyweight brawl, in the 4-issue run of Thanos vs Hulk. But upon reading the run, we only got one fight between the characters, and even that didn't live up to the hype, because one, it took place in a virtual reality, and while I do believe that Hulk's physicals and mentality are one-to-one most of the time, the same cannot be said for Thanos. And two, Thanos actually weakened the Hulk persona, so this wouldn't have actually been an accurate representation of what a fight between the two would look like. Though this does make sense considering that Jim Starlin acknowledged that even during this era, Thanos was still wary of the Hulk's power. Despite the latter point, Bruce is able to help Hulk make up for the nerf by assisting him against Thanos, gaining the upper hand in straight hands, until Thanos ultimately overpowers him with his energy-based powers. So, 2 issues into a 4-issue run, and we've already had the main event, so what else is there to do? Well, despite this run being named Hulk vs Thanos, the premise is really a Annihilus gaining the power of the Hulk, with the former being said to gain vast new might in the official description for the crossover, and a statement from the Portuguese edition of the full volume saying that Annihilus now has physical strength never seen before. Annihilus also proceeds to don a newer, stronger armor to complement his amped physiology, with it being said that this battle armor is capable of both density manipulation and new offensive capabilities. Though Hulk gets fear-hacked by Annihilus for most of their fight, their Green Goliath is still able to damage the Bug God's new equipment, with Annihilus complementing the Hulk in a later fight with Gladiator. In a later comic that acts as a sequel to the previously mentioned run, we see Thanos square off with the same version of Annihilus, and while Thanos is able to put up a much better fight than Hulk, that's thanks in part to his ability to manipulate cosmic energy. Moving on to Thanos Infinity Finale, we see Thanos pull up to Hulk to recruit him to his cause of battling Annihilus and his horde of Bug Warriors, and as should be expected, Hulk tries to run hands, and so Thanos just uses his energy manipulation to block and knock back the big guy. Nothing more to really add here other than when the battle against Annihilus kicks off and the numbers of Thanos' group begin to dwindle, Hulk is one of the last ones to be standing, but ultimately Thanos is the only one remaining. The second to last fight between the two Titans occurred in the most recent Thanos run, during which Thanos has battled with the Illuminati. The reformed group figures that they will need the help of the Hulk to face the Mad Titan, with the synopsis of the issue even calling Hulk their biggest gun. When Hulk finally arrives on the battlefield, he's able to immediately block a blast from Thanos and responds by smacking Thanos away. The two then go back and forth, albeit with the interference from Strange and Iron Man 2, with Strange even casting a magic spell to nerf Thanos' energy abilities. However, Thanos just proceeds to smack away both Tony and Hulk, and then runs off to find Mistress Death. Is this an L for the heroes? I don't think it's a definitive loss, so Thanos 100% had the better performance based on how he had to deal with 3 characters and being nerfed, even if it was more so towards the end of the battle. The writer also did say that Hulk and Thanos can go toe to toe with each other, and that Thanos wasn't dealing with the usual subconscious nerf where he desires to lose, such as in past storylines. This is because Christopher Cantwell, the writer of the run, believes Thanos is at his most formidable when he has a single desire. Now, before I get into the most recent fight between Thanos and Hulk, I do want to cover a couple of pieces of evidence that, while they do relate to the comic, are more supplementary in regards to the overall scale. First off, we have the Marvel Anatomy Guide that says Thanos' physiology grants him strength on par with the Hulk, a statement that isn't really surprising, especially since Hulk is the metric for all super strong guys that pull up in the Marvel Universe. Though both Thanos' energy augmentation and Hulk's rage increases should eclipse both base stats. Next off, we have the statement from Avengers Mech Strike Monster Hunters, which is a comic where the Avengers all get equipped with giant mech suits. In this, we see Thanos and Hulk enter a contest of pure strength, in which Thanos admits enhances his body with cosmic energy, though thanks to an artifact called the Kraken's Eye, he is Hulk's equal. Though this is only temporary, and actually only lasts less than a whole page, as Hulk immediately gets angrier and is seen to match Thanos again. Now, unfortunately, this comic does take place in a different universe, though I think it's pretty good tertiary evidence nonetheless. In the most recent events concerning Hulk and Thanos, we see Thanos on yet another quest to obtain cosmic power, this time by attempting to retrieve the Infinity Stones yet again, which have now fused with various characters across the Marvel Universe to form a new Infinity Watch. After observing Worldmind, the current host of the Mind Stone, Thanos approaches, kills the wielder, but not before the stone could let out a telepathic call to the one person Thanos himself implies could be capable of stopping him, that being the Hulk. Thanos and Hulk begin fighting, where they are more or less equal, until Thanos kinda breaks the Hulk's neck. However, the goat just snaps it back into place and then proceeds to land a huge punch on Thanos' spine, dropping the Mad Titan to his knees. Now sure, Thanos was technically off guard, but that was one of the most moronic decisions he could have made in a fight, especially with the Hulk of all characters. But the real dumb decision was to gloat and claim Hulk was puny. So based on everything, who actually wins between Thanos and the Hulk? Looking at Thanos' consistent approach to fighting seems to show that he relies more so on striking, both with and without energy enhancement. Sure, he's used mind manipulation a few times, but I doubt he'd actually be capable of affecting Hulk unless he started off calm. Even in fights where Thanos has faced off with more potent and versatile characters than himself, such as Odin, Mistress Death, and even Galactus of all dudes, has Thanos done little more than punch and throw blasts at them in an attempt to get the upper hand. Of course, the issue with this is that Hulk has now shown a few times that Thanos' energy blast would have little effect on him. So in the end, we get exactly what we received recently, Hulk and Thanos going at it in an all-out physical brawl. While Thanos did turn his back, the battle wasn't over, and Thanos' biggest mistake was to mock the Hulk. This scenario was pretty similar to when Hulk fought Onslaught, with the psychic entity mocking Hulk while having the upper hand, only to make the green dude so mad he ends up one-shotting the Mega Mutant's physical form. So should Thanos mock Hulk, as he's done many times before? I think the two are relative enough to where Thanos couldn't put the Hulk down fast enough before he gets so angry he surpasses the death sim. Hopefully you all enjoyed this breakdown on Thanos and Hulk's history, as well as the analysis on a full-on hypothetical battle between the two. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe.